So I guess we're getting a new trade deal with the UK. We'll see how that pans out. Usually, they can announce anything they want to, but hammering out the details usually takes a while. So I guess as things kind of shimmy out of the old news there, we'll find out what the actually trade deal is. But at least there's one for uh, the old pocket there, and we'll kind of see how it goes from there. Um, I was just kind of going through a bunch of things on tariffs and everything like that, and I got to thinking, you know, I bought my wife a new iMac, the computer thing, not the laptop, for Christmas this past Christmas. Hers was, I don't know, probably 12 years old and just wasn't performing very well, and it got shipped from China. And so um, straight just from China and got here. And so old Apple getting everything from China and just kind of shoving it in with all the tariffs and everything like that. And now $1 million for every container ship they bring in. I think Apple's going to be hurting. And you can kind of see here on the left side is a good old daily chart of Apple as it's been kind of moving down. And you look over at the S&P chart to the right, and it's just been kind of moving up. And so Apple's just not feeling the love of the market. And, even Amazon, even though Amazon's up today, I'm wondering how much it's going to hurt Amazon as well. You look at kind of the Mag 7 guys out there, you look at Meta and Google for one. They just make money off advertising. I mean, they don't really sell anything, they just make money off advertising. So you do have a lot of differences between those mag guys. And I think, for the most part, you'll probably see Apple and Amazon kind of on the wimpy side of things, as opposed to the other ones that might just be kind of going up with the market. And as things get better and better and better, things, they'll just continue to go on up along with the overall market itself. So kind of, be aware of that as much as you might like trading Apple stock and stuff like that. It might not move with the overall market just because of the position that it's in. I know that they've said that they're going to try to go over to India and wherever else to, start making phones, and they're taking a $900 million whack to, get that done. But when a company's worth, I don't know how many billions, that's 900 million, right? So we'll kind of see how that pans out over time, for the most part. And you've also probably seen good old, let's just pull this one up. There we go. Gold's starting to pull back again today. As you can kind of see here, they had this nice little rally up with the trade deal. I mean, gold's kind of a fear contract. You got to keep that in your brain sometimes. Even though gold is a precious metal and stuff like that, they use it for a lot of fear kind of things. They want to get out of equities and go into bonds, gold, stuff like that. And with these trade deals getting kind of done and getting better, we might get a lot more volatility in gold, even though probably deserves to go higher just because of all the debts and everything like that. You're going to have pullbacks in it just because, well, it strengthens the dollar. Dollar goes up, usually gold goes down, dollar goes down, usually gold goes up. And that's kind of what it's doing. So we've had a little rally in the dollar just because, hey, the trade deals are actually, starting to get done. I guess you could actually say that since they finally got one with the UK and everything like that. So I think we're gonna kind of see some up and downs and rights and lefts and stuff like that. It's not necessarily the pressure of China buying 1 million ounces and then dumping it. You're gonna probably see stronger dollar, a weaker gold, vice versa. And even though it's kind of pulled back down here to 3,300, I mean you're 200 points from the all-time high in gold, so it's really not that bad, especially from where it's come from last year. And that's the one thing, it's still way up, and it's starting to kind of consolidate. You kind of see we've gone up and pulled back and gone up and pulled back. The big thing is, I guess, do they take out, basically 3,200, and they kind of pull things back a little harder. So we'll keep our eye on it and kind of see what it does. Another thing that's been kind of heating up here lately, um, is good old uranium. Um, uranium stocks are doing very well, and I think that's going to continue to be the case on a longer term basis. I mean, if you've been in, a couple of webinars I've been in, and I've talked about this quite a few times, but there's a lot of demand for uranium, and I think it's going to be continued to be kind of on high demand as more nuclear stuff comes along, even with, the military or the Department of Defense or whomever they are, has decided to put these small modular reactors, SRMs, or SMRs, around on the military bases just to kind of, give them power and stuff like that. You're probably going to have a whole lot more demand on uranium and kind of going from there. So it's a cheaper stock. I mean, I uh, bought some, and I've owned some for a while, and I bought some more of it. And I think it can continue to kind of move on up. I'd really like to see it get above $30. But I mean, we got a ways before we get there. We got, two and a half, $3, or $3.50, I guess I should say, to get there. But I think it's a good investment, just kind of overall, just kind of hold on to it. One thing, if you're investing in the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ 100 or anything like that, there aren't any uranium stocks in those. So, you can't just, buy the SPY or QQQ and kind of control that. It just doesn't work that way. So, but I think that's a pretty good little find right there. And it's really, I mean, we had the Fed come out yesterday. You talk about a nothing burger. Oh my goodness. I mean, yesterday's markets were like watching paint dry. This morning was kind of that way, but finally they got a little strength and started kind of pushing things higher today. But I was kind of glad to see them start, doing things. But I think the UK announcement thing was probably the big catalyst behind that one. But I mean, you think, the Federal Reserve and then Powell speaking and all this good stuff usually puts some pretty good volatility in the S&P, the Dow, the Nasdaq, the Russell, all that stuff. It really didn't do much of anything. They were not impressed. So they were expecting them to leave rates alone. They left rates alone. And then they came back and they pretty much said, we're just in watch and wait mode just to kind of see what's going on. So there, and that was about it. So that's really, really all you have. Um, so But anyway, that's the thing that you have to kind of, beware of at times when you're expecting the market to do something, which I think most people were, and it doesn't happen, then really is not that big of a deal. It's not to say that it's not going to be. The next time they meet is in June, and if that's the case, so, yeah, just a watch and see thing. Yeah, I agree, Joseph. But I mean that's the thing. I mean, I we still have a lot of, economic newses that are going to be coming out. This is the quote unquote second week of the month, if you will. And if you just kind of look at in general from month to month to month to month to month, usually the second week of the month, there's not a whole lot of news that comes out. I mean, economic news that comes out during that time. They'll dump stuff out at the very beginning of the month, at the very end of the month, and in the middle of the month. So like next week, we'll get the CPIs and the PPIs and the retail sales and all that kind of stuff. It's almost like they take a breather of a week and start going from there. So next week will be a real busy week as far as news. Of course, we still have a ton of earnings coming out still. We haven't gotten all those out of the way. I mean, it starts to kind of wane off a little bit next week, but we still have quite a few, I mean, that are coming out. In fact, the retailers usually round out the earnings season. When was Walmart? Walmart comes out on the 15th. So in a week, basically. There we go. So a week from today, we'll start having the retailers start come out. And that's when we get all the Kohl's and Dillard's and Walmarts and all those kind of things. We'll kind of see how they do to kind of round out I'll say the overall official earnings season. And then from then on, we just get stuff from here to here to here. Some companies, really go late in earnings season, if you will. Uh, Earnings like the banks are always the first ones to start out. So you have the banks that start it, you have the retailers that end it. And about 2 weeks before, the banks start announcing, you'll get companies like, Adobe and FedEx and none of those things. You're like, hey, these are big companies here. And but they do. Some of them are just like they'll do it right at the end of the quarter as opposed to the right at the beginning of the quarter when everybody else kind of does it. So, but you have earnings all the time, and some days you don't have anything that you even notice. You know, it might be they're all just penny stocks or whatever it is. But since they're listed, they got to put them out. So there it is. So, but anyway, but kind of watch to see how the retailers do. I'll be really interested to see how the retailers do. Granted, it's based off last quarter, so everything was still, kind of cruising along and doing pretty well. The tariffs didn't come in until the beginning of this quarter, right? So last quarter might be okay. But this quarter is going to be kind of interesting to really kind of look at when we start seeing everything. I guess it'll be all coming out in July, right? Yeah, I guess it will be. So, a couple of months, we'll see what, this quarter has done for everything. And I want to kind of see what the CPI number is this month as they kind of recalculate things. They had a little bit of a negative number. Uh, Something tells me it's going to come in positive when they revise it. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. But that's not till the end of the month, and we'll kind of see what that does. That's when the PCE and all that stuff comes out. So, but right now, I mean, you just kind of go across the news things, and there's really not a whole lot going on. I think everybody's been kind of devastated. I guess, a pope died. In fact, I thought I read that they just elected one. They said they had white smoke and they got a new pope. So anyway, that's cool. We'll kind of see what this one does. But anyhow, so he's from Chicago. Is that what I just read, Joseph? So, oh, that's pretty crazy. Awesome. Villanova grad. Wow. Learn something new every day. But anyway, well, that'll be interesting. The first U.S. guy. Wow. Impressive. So, have they ever had one from the U.S.? No. Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. I was going to say, as long as I've been alive, which no, that's not very long as far as Pope time. They've been around for what, 2,000 years. So that's, I'm going to say that's the first time I've ever heard of one. But cool, awesome. Well, congratulations. So, but anyway, cool. Well, I mean, like I said, there's not a whole lot else going on. I think next week we're going to get a lot of economic news as well as the retailers, and I think that's going to be kind of the big little catalyst that we'll see kind of going forward. What's inflation doing? I mean, we still have food prices up pretty substantially globally. They've kind of corrected down a little bit here in the United States, from what I can see, but not a whole lot. Even though crude oil's pulled back, and this is kind of interesting, even though crude oil's pulled back, gasoline's still holding up real well. And that's why you haven't really seen the pumps move a whole lot. Even though it's down, don't get me wrong, um, it's not down as much as crude oil is. I mean, you look at USO, USO was up around, 77, 78, 79 bucks. It got chunked by 10 bucks literally almost overnight. Um, and of course, crude oil got dumped off pretty well too. I mean, we went from almost $80 down to, well, we were trading right around, 78, $79 and went down to 55. Of course, we were trading right at 60 when the big news came out. But I mean, it's really been hit pretty hard as opposed to gasoline. Gasoline has pulled back, but it just hasn't pulled back all that much. I mean, it's moved down about 40, 50 cents. And on a move like you've seen in crude, gasoline ought to be down more than that. And still held up pretty well. If you just add all the taxes to it, that still puts it right around, I mean, here in Alabama, right around 260 a gallon, which I know we're pretty cheap here. But if you go across the United States, I bet you it's still $3 or higher at minimum. And so, like I said, gasoline really hadn't pulled back all that much. And that's the thing that people put in their cars as opposed to crude oil coming down. So 309, Pete says. So, but yeah. But yeah. Um, but it's still $6 in California. My goodness. Like I said, gasoline really hadn't come down that much. It hadn't come down comparatively to crude. I'm hoping that's going to change. Um, they the biggest problem that we've run into, if you just look at the petroleum status reports, we keep getting draws in gasoline, um, and we're starting to get draws in crude oil now. But we've had a lot of surpluses in crude oil, and gasoline's just been like, well, we still are kind of hurting on keeping gasoline around. And I think that's another reason why they want to go to E15 gas so they can make more ethanol to add to that so they can kind of offset us having to produce a whole lot more gasoline. Just kind of what I'm guessing and kind of put my ear to the ground and saying, there's a rhyme to this reason somewhere, and I bet you that's what it is. So, but gasoline has not come down all that much. And even the gasoline futures, even though they've pulled back some, they hadn't pulled back very much at all. So, but let's kind of see what next week brings and kind of go from there. And if you're kind of interested in gold and things like that, I'll be live tomorrow, and I believe we'll replay that presentation today. So, 350 in Minnesota. Wow. For 87 octane. Wow. So, we're $1 a gallon cheaper at the Circle K's around here. They're the cheapest ones around here, Circle K. So 280 a gallon in the south there in Kentucky. There you go. That's closer to where we are, Dean. Yeah. So, but alrighty. Thanks for all tuning in, and we'll come back next week and see where things are.